Okay, we both
C4 by
boards.
Magnus.
Both boards. So we got C4 from Magnus. Now, just time control. Let me just sort that out. So 5 minutes, and they get 3 second increment. Is that right?
It's 5 minutes with a 3 second increment.
Fine. Okay. Where's Wesley gone? Oh, he's back.
Wesley is back. And all right, so we've got the English opening. He's going to go for D5 here. Now, you remember, Danny, we were looking at E4. None of that. He breaks in the center. The two have played this opening before and just blitzing their moves out. This was that Scandinavian setup that you were talking about previously as well. And I think that's where we are headed. But no F5 this time. No F5.
No. It's just a classical dragon this time. No Scheveningen. Classical dragon. But okay, Queen D. I'm trying to remember because I mean Magnus has had this before.
A very interesting middle game here. Now F5, that's a move that Wesley likes making. Let's quickly get up to date with our live position.
So he's taken on C6. Now that is incredibly ambitious from Magnus. Very risky because he's weakened his king side. I mean, thing is that bishop covers the C6 pawn, so very difficult to make anything. I have to say, I find that a very risky decision from Magnus to take on C6. That does not appeal to me at all. And well, F4 with and bringing the queen down here. Rook F2 looked so artificial from Magnus.
Passive.
Can we?
Very, very passive. And black can actually go bishop A5, bishop B6 ideas if that bishop on E3 isn't careful. So many weaknesses in white's position. Also, more importantly, where is white's play? Look at that bishop on D5, defending the C6 pawn. Everything under control. More space for Wesley. 2 bishops in the position. I'm loving black here, Danny.
Yeah, definitely. And this is great. Rook E6, because, you know, you want to be able to play F4 and swing the rook. This is a dreadful position for Magnus. I really think that. He's not going to be happy here.
Well, I think with these blitz, what happens is that the players have got no time for emotions. They're so focused on the position, playing it move by move. And Danny, the hardest thing for them is always to switch from the rapid format. They've just played 4 intense games of rapid to going down to the wire with the blitz. And really coming and adapting yourself is key here. And look at Wesley. He is really just going for it. He's throwing everything at Magnus's king. H5, hinting at H4, taking more space. Magnus replying with knight C4. Now the rook on E6 can't jump to G6 so easily because the E5 pawn is attacked. Wesley says, I will eventually bring that rook into the attack. He's gotten the last piece of the game to the center, really taking control. The more I see it, the more I like it for Wesley.
Yeah, definitely. And Magnus might be able to push that bishop back, which could be quite a relief, actually. You know, your idea of before the knight hits C4 of bishop A5 round to B6 was actually pretty appealing. Yeah, but it looks still very, very promising. So that's, I guess, directed against E4. Wow. I mean, this is extraordinary. I guess Magnus would really like to play bishop F2 and E4, but I doubt whether he's going to have time for that. So he's trying to get the bishop to G5. 2.5 minutes remaining.
Very tensed middle game here. Extremely tense. Just look at the pawn. F4 coming.
I think F4 might be possible.
Now he does put the rook on G6. So he wants to go F4, but at the right time, he first brings the rook to G6. I think F4 is an idea that white needs to watch out for. Bishop G5, Danny, that you were pointing out, is also under control. Now, wow, this is risky. Magnus just goes for the pawn on A7. That is very brave.
Yeah, and if F4, well, E3. E3 must be the move.
But E3, you can't just go So that's really nice, Danny. Let's just draw some arrows and show the problem with the rook on g2 here. You give up this pawn, but this rook on g2 is lost. So Magnus counter-attacking the rook on g6 with knight e5. What happens if black just moves the rook away? Rook to e6?
Well, he's just ditching the exchange and hoping that he's got enough play, which, well, he might. Oh, wow. He's trying to hold this pawn on e3. But what is going on here? The queen now attacks the rook on g6. This is wild stuff.
This is wild. It's the kind of position where anyone can make a blunder at any moment. So finally, he does move the rook away, and the rook on g2 is trapped. It's got nowhere to run. So black can't pick it up at any time. There's no reason for him to hurry up with it.
I'm guessing Magnus is going to put the bishop back on d4 to hold the knight on e5. And just ditch that exchange. But that he might have to just give up both rooks. But queen f5, so that's how he's holding the knight. Very interesting. This one is still so much in the balance. But it does concern me that this bishop is rather stranded. I wonder whether Wesley can lock it out of the game with c5. How is c5 in this position? I don't know whether we need.
I'm a little worried about this bishop on d5.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if white can go knight g6 there. So
It
Wesley
could be.
Knight g6 would be a little annoying. So Wesley decides to keep the bishop on d5, a very important piece defended, attacks the queen. So queen h5 comes to mind. Picking that pawn up, Magnus goes for it. Knight g6, queen h8 ideas in the air that black needs to watch out for. And wow, this is the kind of position, it's just about anything can happen here. It's playing for 3 results, more like playing for 2 results. Either white wins or black wins. No draws here.
He's taken on e5.
Queen e5, trade the queens. Trade the queens. Don't get checkmated.
But now he'll take the rook and play rook f2 check and take the e-pawn. What is going on there?
It's fine because you still... So queen e5, queen e5. Let's just have some arrows on the board. We'll keep up with the live board.
So here takes, and then rook f2 check to take here. I think he's going for it.
He's going for it. So queen e5 played. Wesley having a thing.
But he doesn't need to take the rook yet. So what he can do is he can come around here and take this pawn if he wants to. I don't know if that's a theme, but yeah, but taking here and taking on e2, I don't see what's wrong with that.
He's gone for it, Danny. He's gone for it. He's going to go for the e-pawn and king g2, rook f2, king g1, because king h3 would be too far away from the e-pawn. So he needs to keep the king close to black's passer. What is happening here? Can white start pushing e6?
Yeah, e6, and then play bishop c5 and hold the e-pawn.
And not only hold, you're threatening mate, king f8. Let's just have some arrows, Danny. King f8, bishop c5, king e8. Rook f1 starts threatening checkmate on f8.
Wow. Has Magnus turned it round?
I think he has.
Incredible. Yeah, I think he has. Now, how are they looking?
To 45 seconds.
That is something else.
Because it's unstoppable, this pawn. Rook f1 and e7 are threats. How are you going to fight this?
I think, that's how he's going to fight it.
But now rook d8, you've got king h7.
Yeah, that's how he's done it. So, but the thing is, the rook is kind of stuck. Because if it comes to f2, then the e-pawn is on. Rook d4 hits the bishop.
Bishop d6 has to be played because bishop a3, I'm afraid of some b4 stuff. So bishop d6 here.
And then he wants rook e4.
Wow. And then if you lose the e-pawn, you lose the game.
So now hang on. He could play rook d7 as well. I don't know which is better. Maybe... I think rook d7 actually. But then bishop d6. Yeah, bishop d6. Rook e4.
Rook e4, maybe he wants to hold on with bishop g5. The rook e4, bishop g5, saving the e3 pawn.
Yeah, just been told in this position, of course, after this takes. No, check first. Yeah, check first. Check first, and then takes and e7. Wow.
All right, on our live board, rook e4 was played, spotting that trick. And after rook e4, he goes c5, blocking that bishop. So the e3 pawn is still alive. And
but this must be better for white. Must be better.
The a pawn is marching down the board.
Because there's bishop b8, that bishop d6. That's kind of annoying. This bishop is trapped out, but still, yeah, you push it, but we might get a trade of. Magnus has to be careful that bishop isn't trapped for when the rook comes round. Very strange position. Right, that's what he's doing. He's simplifying. So he can do this.
Wesley shaking his head. He's down to 4 seconds.
Rook takes pawn. Rook takes e3. Right.
And Wesley's got no time. He needs to make a move. Bishop d6. He wants to go king e7.
Magnus is in control now.
On the clock as well.
Okay, he's winning. He can just take here. Yeah, it's gone. This is winning for Magnus because he does have an extra pawn on this side of the board as well.
To see the last bit of it, Danny. Bishop e3, bishop g5 is a big threat on the board, and that is it. Wesley so resigns. There's no way you can fight that. That bishop on d8 is a dead piece. Let's jump back to our live game. Both these players. Wesley starts with the white pieces, and there we have it. I was thinking about e4 by Wesley, but clearly wants to avoid any Berlins, and Magnus gets a chance to go for his favorite line in the Queen's Gambit decline. He starts with a6, not committing to what he wants to do. This is a very, very flexible move, and we've seen the world champion go for it several times.
Yeah, Magnus does like this system with a6, doesn't he? And it is very solid. So can Wesley shake it up in some way? Now,
the chat thinks, Danny, there's going to be no comeback here.
Well, it's
not just hard. Here. There's going to be no comeback in this quarterfinals.
It's hard to bet against Magnus. Yeah, I feel so sorry for Arjun. Okay, well, everything very orthodox so far. Nothing. Yeah, nothing new actually. This idea with bishop f4 also well known in this position because if black takes, then this pawn is annoying. So. Queen c7, normal response. Now you can just drop back with bishop g3. I think that's superior to exchanging on d6. Oh, there you go. The exchange on d6. Commentator's curse strikes once more. But
and these are those structures, Danny, we were looking at earlier. And white often has this idea, once the development is finished, to go for a minority attack on the queen side. He can often try and get these A and B pawn rolling. And if he's able to get a good b5 in, then it ends up creating weaknesses on the queen side. The other idea that white can often have is to go short castle, get that rook on e1, and go e4. Very familiar to the Anish game that we saw.
Yeah, but do you know what? I think black is so well set up here. Against the minority attack that if white, I mean, of course, white can go for this, but I just don't think black has any particular difficulties against that at all. I mean, I'm just wondering whether Wesley should simply castle queen. He's in a must-win situation. I think an option is to call. Oh, there you go. Commentator's curse strikes once more. He castled kingside. But I think Magnus will be really happy with this because there's nothing kind of out of the ordinary here. I mean, one thing is when you're so well set up here is that if white goes for this, you can actually play b5 here and put the knight on b6. I mean, black is very well set up to blockade there. But there are many responses. But that's one possible idea.
Yeah, lots of plans here for white, as well as you're mentioning that instead of a3, b4, he could try with rook b1, b4 and go a4 when he gets the chance. Black has got this idea of going b5, knight b6. planting that knight to c4. But whenever the knight from d7 moves, very often white's knight from f3 is able to jump to e5. So yes, it does look like a slow position, but lots of rich ideas. And Wesley starts with a3. I do believe that he wants to push that b4 pawn.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see if Magnus actually goes for b5 after b4.
Well, another planet, because there's no immediate threat to play b5, then Magnus is putting his knight on d6. So again, we've seen it before. This is the dream square for the knight, and then you can play bishop f5 to chop off the bishops. And like I said, I think Magnus is let me kill the arrows. I think Magnus is very well set up to deal with this minority attack. So I think he's absolutely fine.
Knight e5, the moment he gets an opportunity, and if white gets one more move, then he can also start thinking about f4 here. Knight d6, as you were mentioning, on the board, a really nice spot for the knight. White goes rook e1. So taking on e5 is not a good idea because you trade and go f4, f5.
Yeah, but again, I mean, maybe I'm prejudiced because I'm used to playing these kind of positions with black, but I feel that with the knight on d6, f4, f5 shouldn't be too much of a problem. There's f6 to drive away the knight, and e4 is under control. Magnus has got to be happy here. So far, so good, I would say, for the world champion.
And let's not forget, Wesley has to win this game. A draw is not enough, even though Wesley's got no problems in his position either. But it's not enough. He has to create something. And to create something, he needs to break. He needs to either play f4 or play e4. He has to take his chances. I don't see how he's going to improve his position. Is it time already to take a drastic decision for white here?
Well, let's look at f4. He's played rook e2, which looks hesitant. But I just want to have a look at f4 and see the kind of thing that black could try against that. I mean, one thing is simply f6. And I think black is really well. I mean, you can see he's played the rook to e8. He's so well set up that I don't think f4 really helps white at all. If knight c5, the bishop will drop back to c8. So instead of that, he went rook e2, bishop f5. Yep, that's the one we've been angling for a long time. And now
Magnus is having a think. Is he seriously considering taking with the G pawn?
Well,
or he's thinking about knight e5. That would make a lot more sense.
Exactly. That's what he's looking at. Just throwing that one in and seeing whether he wants this structure or whether he's going to simply recapture. I don't know. Could do this and then f4 and knight g3. Wow, this is what he's thinking about. Tanya, that's what he's thinking about. He's thinking about knight e5 here. Does he want that?
Well, the line that you pointed out after f4 and the fork on g3, you would want it, but he decides not to go for it. He decides to go knight f5 here. And the point is that you can't come back with the knight to d3 because of knight d4. So white needs to watch out for this trick. You can't come back knight d3 because of knight d4. The rook on e2 was hanging, so he had to go back knight f3. And Magnus's knight on d6 and d7 definitely looking better than the split knights that we have on a4 and f3.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just a very comfortable position for Magnus. Very hard for white to make progress here. E4, well, will just lead to liquidation. Yeah, this is very sound, just doubling on the e file.
And no advantage on the clock either.
No. Now, come on. Can Wesley find something here? f3, I think that's the only chance. But even if he gets in at e4, I don't quite believe it. I wonder whether Magnus will play with f5 himself. I don't think he needs to, but No.
Knight f5, so keeping things under control. Can't go e4 because don't forget the d4 pawn will be hanging. So Magnus stops the idea of e4 with knight f5. Also, that g3 square, very, very weak there. With
Definitely.
moves like h3, f3, you've created weaknesses.
Yeah. I mean, if he has time, it would be lovely to run that pawn up the board, wouldn't it?
I actually like Magnus's position,
Yeah.
even though Wesley's the one who needs to win here.
No, I'm with you all the way. You know, I would take black here. I like it. G4. Okay.
Wow, this is desperation, Danny.
Game on. I think he needs to, you know, he needs to do something. Otherwise, Magnus just has control here. But let's see. Well, I was going to say knight back to d6 is the safe option, and this is the option where he's playing for the advantage.
This is the option that the audience wants to see. This is the option we all want to see. Also, do not forget, if black gets queen c7, queen g3 in, that will be super nasty.
Yeah. I mean, f4 can cut that out, of course, but
then you're never getting e4.
Yeah,
that's the good
true.
news. King f2 played.
That means
so now after queen c7,
he can drop the knight. He can drop the knight to f1.
And then f5, isn't that scary?
Maybe. I'll play g5. Maybe scary.
g5. All right, let's take. We've got it on the board. By the way, it is on the board. Magnus starts with f5, not queen c, not including queen c7, knight f1 in, f5 on. Whoa!
Oh, that
is over.
This looks pretty bad. Yeah,
and now queen c7 comes in. You have to fall back with the knight. This is bad news for Wesley.
Queen c7, queen f4 is hits this pawn. It looks terrible. It's game over. This is dreadful.
Too many weaknesses. It's too many weaknesses. Knight f6, knight e4 ideas are there.
It looks fantastic.
And look at white's pieces. They're just all defending. No targets on the board. All of black's pieces playing super actively. Magnus now just fully focused, trying to find the finish here. And one gets the feeling that it exists in this position.
Yeah, knight f6 can be met by king e2. Then knight e4 anyway. Yeah. So knight f6, maybe knight c3.
So he first down, he pushes that knight away back to c3, and now he can even think about going knight b6, knight c4, provoking more.
Oh, yes. Whoa. So if that's taken, then d4.
And look at Wesley.
Oh,
Wesley is being thrown a shocker after shocker. First, the sacrifice that got the f4 fork in, and now knight c5 with d4 coming in. This is what happens when you have an angry Magnus Carlsen.
Let me just show this one. If takes, you play here, takes, here, check, and then we take this one. And that looks wonderful for black. I think basically we're just heading into an endgame. Well, with lots of pawns. Oh, hang on, how did we get there? Wait a second, it's gone. It did go like this, but this is just winning.
It's over. There's just no way that Wesley's coming back from this position. He's a pawn down. Look at white's pawn structure. h3, c5, a3, all these pawns are weak. Only thing white is hoping for is to get knight e4, knight f6 in, and black, before getting greedy, improves his own knight, will put it to d5 so that there's no check on f6, and this is just game over.
That Tanya, that is super chunky. Yeah, I do like. Well,
he needs to first save the rook. Yes. Rook d3 check, takes the pawn, knight f6, and now just go king f8, hit that rook.
Rook. Yeah, okay, he's fighting, but it's not good enough.
Nice move. Rook c6, there's knight d4 check.
Oh, yeah, that's sweet.
And the c5 pawn is hanging. King c8 now. The c5 pawn will fall.
Oh, that's a cheeky move.
Have to be a little careful right now.
Oh, Magnus, be careful. Not so clear.
So knight c5, rook c6 still coming in.
Ooh,
And Magnus, for the first time, looking slightly concerned, shaking his head.
So he's gone passive with the knight, which holds that. He should be okay, but Wesley is fighting. Now, come on. Can Wesley do this?
There
Still
is the
in the
G
game.
passer.
Yeah. And this
This is
rook.
game on again, Danny. This is game on. There's a G passer, Black's knight on d8, very passive. Wesley cuts off the king, a little smile on his face there. Haven't seen that in a while.
And he's still got this trick, takes and rook takes c6.
Yeah, but he can just come back, knight.
Yeah, king d7, that's probably the way to go. Do you know what? When there are knights on the board, it always gets tricky. Oh, but now Magnus has control.
Yeah.
He'll
Now
take with
look at
check
those-
and he total control.
Total control. Look at that king, knight, and rook. Now everything's fine. White is never getting g5 in.
By the way, check out the clock times. Wesley has just seconds left. Good move. Controlling f5. Yeah, I mean, it's over. Magnus is going
This
to do
is
it.
over. The G pawn isn't going anywhere, and the 3 pawns on the queen side will decide. Rook h5, he can start pushing those pawns already. And Wesley knows that it's all done.
Yeah, okay. Magnus just being super safe, just trading off. Okay, I
And
think
that's it.
we can call it a day.
That is it. And not only Magnus, but Levon Aronian also drew his second game against Arjun Aragasi, and with that qualifies to the semifinals. This one also, yeah, that's it. The h5 pawn falls, and with that, p4. What a fight. What a fight. And there we have it. The two players, after their epic fight, relieved. Magnus Carlsen there, just so relieved with this blitz playoff, because the way the rapid portion went today was definitely a setback for him.